supplier engagement, smelter engagement. But Eddie's going to bring a unique perspective, one that we've not had here at AIAG at this event in the past, but he's going to share with you a perspective from the Congo that we don't often hear. So please welcome Eddie DISHUEME.
Thank you, Tanya, not only for giving me the mic, but also for having me here at AIAG. As Tanya mentioned, I'm a Congolese national, trying to give you a Congolese perspective in this issue of conflict mineral. It's a very important subject in the industry, but also in Congo, because most of the most of the minerals, as you know, come from Central Africa and Congo. DR Congo is the major player in 3TG. But before we speak about that, I'll give you a small background on what's going on. Because usually when we talk about conflict, we think of it as something going on in a small circle. But this is bigger than it is. It's actually minimized when we use the word conflict. It's actually a war that's been going on for almost 25 years now. It's the worst disaster since World War II in terms of a conflict. So far it's cost over 5.4 million people's lives. And that estimate is much less than expected, because that number was in 2007. So imagine since then how many more died. 50% of the people that died are kids, children. We have over 2.8 million people displaced, a lot of women enslaved, as I'm speaking to you now. There, modern day slavery going on in the Congo as we speak. A lot of rapes. Congo is actually the capital of the world in terms of rape. And the killings have gotten worse, because it's not only killings designed to shock, but it's killings designed to tell people that if you don't obey us, we're going to show people that we killed you, but prove to them that we really killed you badly. So it's a disaster so bad that sometimes we don't even understand the level of it. The turmoil, as we said, has a lot of conflict drivers. A lot of reasons why it's happening. The top one is minerals, and that's why we're all here talking about procedures and processes and all that. That's the major part of it. But we cannot deny the fact that there are other drivers. Bad governance is one. Congo is so badly governed that it inflates the issue, because it creates a lot of gaps in the system. Tribal and land grievances are also a factor. This ethnic fighting against another an ethnic group, and they get into a fight and it spills into this type of region. Poverty is a major factor, because with poverty what happens is a lot of enslavement, if you can imagine that, may be voluntary in the beginning. Somebody comes to you and says, I have money to offer you so you can come to the mine with me. And you say, oh yes, how much are you going to pay me? $2. Well, if I make $1, $25 a day, I think it's a good deal. So I take it. But once I go to the mine, I cannot get out anymore. So poverty is a major factor. Greed is another one, because the system in the Congo is such that the people on the top control everything. So that when they do the contracts, they do the signing and all that, they control the whole process. But even though they're controlling the process, they're getting enough in their pockets, they don't let it go to the point where it's affecting now the whole system. State failure is an issue. State failure in the sense that borders are so porous that even though we're controlling the process now with a lot of transparency, but still, and you're going to see with gold that's really hard to trace, it will spill into other countries. It's very, very hard to control. It's going to spill over. So as we speak about this and we talk about conflict drivers, we have to understand the fact that we're looking at an issue that has a lot of other factors in there that we have to understand as a whole. So we know for a fact that conflict drivers, the major part of the conflict driver is 3TG. The treaties are better controlled now, but gold is not. So when all of you look at this process, please pay more attention to the gold part, because gold is really a major gap in the whole system. I will go ahead and mention something that you don't hear a lot in this type of instance, because as a Congolese national, I can tell you for a fact that we feel like we've lost our past. Okay? The country is the richest country in the world potentially, yet it's the poorest in terms of the human development factor. Why is that? We cannot tell. This is not the venue to discuss it. But because we've lost the past, and the present is such a big loss for us, it's painful still, the only thing we can look forward to is the future. And once we get into this type of venue, we want you guys also to consider our plea, to consider the future of Congolese. Even if it's not good today, it can be better tomorrow. The reason why I mention it is you look at the conflict fuel, not the conflict driver, the fuel of the future, is the fact that the Congo has $24 trillion worth of untapped mineral in the ground, not touched yet. And you also have the biggest deposit of cobalt, which in the industry you guys need. We know it's there. So if we don't set up a good system now, this is going to fuel a bigger conflict in the future. It definitely. And if the system is not changed in the Congo, the political system is not going to help whatever we do as far as processes. Supply chain, which all of you know, top to bottom. We start with the mines, you go all the way to consumers. But if you look at the supply chain, the biggest thing that we live off is the beginning of the chain, because we start at the mines. But before the mines, I spoke about bad governance, something happens. Some contracts are signed. Some people, some money changes hands between one side to the next. And also, there is a black market that's not included in here. So when you look at the supply chain, even though the downstream part is really well done now, look at the upstream part and consider those gaps in the system that can be fixed to make a whole better system. Goals versus results. And the reason why I mentioned this is because what happened was with the DF 1502, things started progressing fast. But the EU stayed behind, as you know it in the industry. They are catching up now. They have a EU initiative that came out that's actually supporting the DF law. And these are the goals that they came up with. To break the link between mineral extraction, mineral trading, and financing of armed groups, which all of you knew since the beginning. But because we mentioned other factors, if we don't resolve the other factors, we're going to always have a gap in the system, because we're looking at minerals as a driver, but there are also other factors that we have to consider. State failure is one, as I mentioned. So when we discuss it, that's another gap. We need to continue creating a market of traded minerals originating from conflict regions. Very important, because the more we discuss this, some companies will pull out, because they would say, well, if a region is so difficult to deal with, let's pull out and go to a different region that's less conflicted. As a Congolese, I'm pleading with you. I'm saying, please don't do that, because we have 2 million miners on the field that have no other education, no other training. The whole livelihood depends on mining. Once you guys pull out, which happened in the past, a lot of companies did this. In 2010, when the law came out and started being implemented, a lot of companies pulled out of the Congo. And it created a black market, it created a gray market, and a lot of people died because of it. Because those people had no other livelihood. They could not do another type of job. So please do not pull out. Help us resolve the issue. Let's fix it instead of pulling out. Improve the ability of operators to comply with existing due diligence framework at all levels. The reason why we say all levels is because, as I said, the downstream side is doing quite well, but upstream is not. And there is a lack of communication between the two sides in certain cases. So please, let's improve the communication part while you're doing all the processes to be transparent. These are the positive signs in the field. There is truly an increased demand for conflict-free minerals. As all of you can tell in your companies, that's all you're asking for, conflict-free minerals. There is an increased scrutiny of corporate supply chains, which you're doing here today. There is a decreased cash flow for armed groups in the DRC, which is very good because the armed groups cannot do anything to hurt the people that will move to different regions if they don't have the money coming in anymore. There is an increased traceability of minerals, going from mines to consumers. And what we realize also, the armed groups are ceding controls of some mines. And once they cede controls, the percentage of earnings for the people go up. In some cases, from 35 to 40%, they earn more. And the EU initiative is another positive sign because we can see that they are getting into the game. The DF 1502 deals basically with the US. US companies that are SEC regulated. But the EU initiative is looking at other companies in the world, which is a positive sign. Well, to conclude, I'll just basically discuss the solutions. We have two sides of it, external and internal, because with external solutions, what we're talking about is not what you expect. It's the fact that the Congo is one country, but it's got 9 other countries around it. And a lot of your minerals are sourced from neighboring countries. And you're satisfying your rules, because if it comes from Rwanda, Burundi, you feel like it went from point A to point B. But because the borders are so porous, you don't know where the mineral is originating from, even though you believe you know, because the tagging, the bagging of it may all be a lie. The country is corrupted, so when they're tagging and bagging, you won't know what's going to happen behind the scenes. Okay? So we are asking that in the sanctions, in the taxation, embargo and all that, that we consider also the neighboring countries that border the Congo. But internally, in the Congo, we know it's all up to us. It's up to the Congolese, because that's the biggest factor. If all of this is being done, and the Congo is still a badly governed country, it's not going to fix the whole system. So we need education, because most of the Congolese don't even know what a traceability system is. Even the ones who are working in the mines, they have no idea, because there's not been any training, any talk to them about what this entails. We need training, just as I mentioned. If they leave this sector, they can fall back on something else. We need awareness, just so that they don't cheat themselves out of what they need to do to better their country. And we need better governance, and we need a new leadership. New leadership is very, very important, because most of the time in Africa, what happens is one president leaves, and the next one is either a friend or a cousin or somebody in the system. And the whole system is going to continue. We need somebody with a fresh outlook, somebody with some brand new ideas, so the system can hold change. And I thank you for this chance to talk to you. Thank you.
Sepe ikanamba kende Akungu stand up